A experiência do Instituto Araiara ao longo de mais de 30 anos na promoção de energias limpas, na proteção do clima e no combate aos combustíveis fósseis atinge todos os estados do Brasil e partes da América Latina. Nesse período, a Araiara ajudou a prevenir mais de 3 gigatoneladas de emissões de CO2, salvou 675 mil vidas e evitou 1,2 trilhão de dólares em danos. Nossas conquistas incluem a aprovação de 415 leis contra o fracking em 17 estados, a alteração de 2 constituições estaduais, a paralisação da maior mina de carvão da América Latina, bloqueio de usinas e gasodutos e a retirada de 1.354 blocos de petróleo e gás de leilões. Lideramos a campanha na costa amazônica com mais de 80 ONGs, somos pioneiros no ativismo contra combustíveis fósseis com nossa própria tecnologia, tudo por um futuro justo e com baixas emissões de carbono. Nossa missão é defender a vida e transformar a energia para pessoas e o planeta. Bem-vindo a Araiara no Amazon Climate Hub. Vamos construir juntos um futuro justo.
Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. My name is Vernita Pearl Ford. I am with the Center for United Nations Constitutional Research. And the first thing I would like to say is thank you to Ariara, the Amazon Climate Hub, for hosting this very short discussion. And I'm going to immediately turn it over to my colleague. We have at the Center for United Nations Constitutional Research a sub-organization called the Youth Climate Ambassadors. And one of our members is Helen, who will please introduce yourself, Helen, and what you do. And here we go. And I have a few slides.
Thank you. Good afternoon and good night, everyone. I am Helen Pasmayan from Ecuador. I am an internationalist. I'm working now in the climate finance and climate mobility. This is my areas of job. And today we'll begin with an introduction for our representative for Concord, Bernita, who will first explain the mission and purpose of Concord and then provide the historical context about the United Nations and why the Charter Review matters today. After that, we'll move into a conversation with our youth climate ambassadors. Thank you.
Yes, the Center for United Nations Constitutional Research is just what it says. It's an organization based in Brussels, but we have members spread all over the world. We examine the constitution that might be the closest thing to an international constitution that we have. It is the Charter of the United Nations that was written 80 years ago in 1945. And I'm going to even take you back before 1945. We had World War II. At the end of World War II, they said, we have to end the war. We have to end the violence. We have to create peace. So the covenant basically said no more wars. And my father was born during that year. But 25 years later, he was drafted into World War II. And so it didn't hold. And so Roosevelt said, let's unite the nations. Let's unite the nations. And in 1945, 50 members came together to write the Charter of the United Nations. 51 people signed it. And, but not everybody was there. Does anybody know? The person in the room who I know who knows cannot say. Does anybody know what the first words of the United Nations Charter is? It is we, the peoples of the United Nations. We, the peoples of the United Nations. And what's so important about those first set of words is all of we, the peoples, did not write it, and our representatives. A third of the world lived under colonial rule. We had only 5 primarily Black nations who were able or allowed to participate. We had Haiti, we had Ethiopia, we had Egypt, we had Liberia, and we had apartheid South Africa. That's just a representative of the few numbers of human beings And if you saw the pictures, and unfortunately I had pictures, but it was too big. My file was too big. Um, and you would see who wrote it. It didn't look like a whole lot of us in this room. And so anyway, everybody, it was going well, the deliberations. And then a few of the members who were victors of World War II said, well, we want veto power. And so many of the members who were participating delegates in writing that charter said, that's too undemocratic. And so they hustled because things were going to break down. And then finally, those members says, okay, we'll give you an amendment clause. That's Article 109. Our organization calls it the San Francisco Promise. And so the promise for so many of us are the youth climate ambassadors. And we think it's time to invoke the amendment clause, the San Francisco Promise. So I'll leave it at that for right now and go from there. Okay. Pass. Oh, with this one. Okay. Which one? So this is what I mentioned, World War One. People were fighting. This is folks sitting around trying to sort out what to do. We had the Paris Peace Agreement. You even had at that time groups of people separated in World War One. I mean, who they did not allow everybody to come to the table to write the Paris Peace Agreement for the League of Nations. So this was the African American group, for example, that began to convene. W.B. Du Bois said, well, we're going to meet anyway. We're going to even meet in Paris. And we're going to meet down the street. So that's what happened. This was the Treaty of Versailles. And we can recreate this moment. This is Palais Wilson, where the League of Nations was. And if that's all it, okay. We've had just many movements of just trying to get the rights, many movements of trying to get our rights. World War II, here we are at the conference for the United Nations Charter. And this is the group of, how do I go backwards? Okay. So that was the first day of the meeting for the United Nations Charter in terms of the writing. World War II, my father fought in that. And then many movements are going on around the world in terms of, oh, I'm going backwards. So I'll leave it there and turn it over to Helen.
Thank you so much, Vernita, for that important context. Now we have a clear understanding about Concord's role and the historical background of the UN Charter. I would like to bring in our youth panelists from YCA to reflect why this matters for young people today. The first question is for Damiano. Uh, in, in your view, why is it important for young people to be directly involved in conversations about the UN Charter and global governance reform?
Hello, greetings. I am Damianos. Thank you for hosting and organizing. I'm excited to be part of the panel from CUNCR, and I'm a youth climate ambassador myself, like Helen introduced. And I think what you said, Vernita, about the youth climate ambassadors being quite diverse and from all sorts of backgrounds. From we represent lots of countries. That's what's important for youth participation in global democracy, and especially regarding the UN Charter review. I don't know if I'm happy or sad to hear what Vernita had to say, and that we haven't had the review since many years. So how can we have a representation when there hasn't been an update or a review, given the new circumstances, the new global crisis, ranging from climate change to AI to all sorts of uh, crises. So I think the importance of youth participation is to let we the people govern the world. Let youth be represented by voting or by participating in COP30, for example, because that way that's our declaration that CUNCR made on the 24th of July 2019, the Iperus Declaration back home in Greece. So I think these are the democratic ideals that we urgently demand to uphold the San Francisco Promise and take youth into account. Thank you.
Thank you, Damiano. The next question is for Hannah. How do you see the climate crisis, democracy, and the need to update the UN Charter as interconnect issues?
Thank you very much, Helen. That is a very good question. Firstly, thank you for allowing me to participate today. I am Hannah Lein Mathisen, and I am from Norway. And that is the basis of my answer to this question, because to take it from the start, I come from a state that sees itself as the leading star of climate action, hiding the fact that we are one of the top producers of oil and gas in the world. Yet we always report of COP going well and talk loudly about utopian climate goals because our petroleum does not count on the producing state's bill, but in the state that is burned. We deny the responsibility for actions on the state level. And this is my favorite example of why international cooperation on climate actions or lack of climate action is so inefficient, because the climate crisis does not see borders, yet our statist international order pats each other on the shoulders and focus on the nationally determined contributions over actual effective collaboration and global climate action. I think this is an architectural flaw that contributes to a pattern of using promises over realization when confronting the climate crisis. We consistently see commitments go unfulfilled, leaving disproportionate burdens on those least responsible for historical emissions, us youth. So I think the inefficiency stems not just from individual nation states not doing enough to fight climate change, but from the very framework of the UN Charter and how global governance itself is so built on statism instead of real international cooperation. So I do think we desperately need a change. And I do believe that using the San Francisco Promise and amending the UN Charter is definitely the way to go to have real climate democracy.
Thank you, Hannah. Okay, the next question is for both Hannah and Damiano. What are some of the challenges young people face when trying to influence international decision making, and what strategies have been most effective in overcoming them? First, Hannah, please.
Yes. Okay. So, firstly, youth are not often enough invited to the table on discussions regarding neither climate change nor other topics. Secondly, as a politically active youth, I really see myself that we are sorted into youth policy. It's very rarely you get to talk regarding the bigger issues, because we say you have an opportunity to, if you're lucky and if you're from a privileged country, if you're from a privileged background, you get to have a say maybe on your national or regional level. You don't have a say on the international level, and especially regarding topics that are in its nature borderless, such as climate change. There is a huge lack of young voices in the discussion, and especially of less privileged voices, you from the global south. And I see that as a really big problem, because we are the ones who will inherit the world. We are the ones who will have children who will not be able to see snow, because the climate change is the biggest fight of our generation. And it's really necessary that we get to take action and actually join the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah, for your reflections. And now, Damiano, go ahead.
Thank you, Hannah. I couldn't agree more with your statements, and to build on what you said regarding youth participation. Youth is not involved nearly to as it should be, both in the local, national, regional, global scale. We're talking about a global climate crisis that has effects on everyone. But what is the, let's say, more unfortunate part is that not everyone is facing the same amount of repercussions from this climate crisis. And youth is most of the times, as a challenge, not have the resources to fight against it, even if it's from rising temperatures to increasingly intensified natural disasters and not being able to recover from them, even if it's displaced communities. So I think it's definitely one of the challenges to be able to participate, to have a seat on the table, not only just as a civil society sector or an activist scale, but also in the more professional way, let's say. And to go back to the rest of the um, challenges that we report ourselves as youth, and I'm also remembering a report that was made by Youth Environment Europe about the threats that young environmental defenders face in Europe. There's so many reports of online hate and harassment, of intimidations, of public shaming, and even physical attacks. And all of these repressive environments don't really make it easy for young activists and environmental defenders to participate. But to give this a better note and the strategies that are effective in overcoming them, which is the second part of the question, I think the key is to realize that, as Hannah said, this is a multi-generational topic and a crisis. So obviously, as youth, we will grow into the most dire effects of climate change. So we have to realize that even though we might not be the main people that are responsible for the problem, it is our right to participate and fight for a more clean, healthy, safe, and sustainable environment. And how to do that is to stay active through the civil society, which has shown in multiple levels that it can actually have a real impact. And also to mention our youth climate ambassadors initiative from CUNCR, create this network of planetary citizens and represent ourselves, our communities in global decision making. And a way to do that, of course, is the San Francisco Promise. Vernita couldn't have made a better point about that. So, yes.
Thank you, Damiano. For our final round, I would like to ask of each of you to share one short thought. What is your one concrete change you would like to see in global governance to better adjust to climate crisis and ensure meaningful youth participation? Damiano and Hannah, please.
Yes. I think it goes back to what was already mentioned. The voting is a integral part, maybe the most important part of climate democracy and global democracy at this point. So we have to let we the peoples, as Renita said, that's the first sentence of the charter, UN Charter. We have to let the people and the youth vote both at the UN level, also at the EU level for a more, let's say, regional scale or other regional institutions. Participate in COP, vote in COP, because it's a tool and a space that is really important to let our voices be heard, and don't stop, don't get intimidated from being taking the lead, let's say, in representing as well, because there's one thing to vote and one thing to mobilize yourself and initiate maybe or activate change. So yeah, I think it goes back to our right to vote and our right to participate as the most effective tool right now for global democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Damiano. Anna, go ahead.
Yes, if I can reflect on this a little as well, I think we need to face the issue that with the statism and the view of state sovereignty as the most important thing in international relations today, we will never have an effective global governance of climate change. It's very hard to perform real cooperation when states are seen as the most important entity in the international climate space. So, for my sake, I would prefer to see a change that would mean the UN can have more legal power, for instance. We could have more actual cooperation between different states and more real voting power, real power of decision making to youth and planetary citizens, because we really need action for climate change. And with the lack of real international cooperation we have today under the current UN Charter, I'm very afraid that we are not going to reach the climate goals, and obviously that will be a planetary disaster. So for me, revision of the UN Charter in the direction of more international cooperation and real actual change would be the goal. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. And now we have time for one or two questions or comments.
I had the joy of talking with Nicole the other day about our ideas to run United Nations Charter Review conferences, mock conferences, or Model UN conferences for charter review. I would like to learn what the young people think about that and how effective you think that could be in demonstrating what is possible.
Do you want to go ahead, Damianos, or should I?
You can go ahead,
Okay.
Hannah, please.
I think it's a very good idea, Renita. Thank you for bringing it to the table. I think model United Nations or model European Parliament, the different arenas for political teaching for youth are very important. However, I think it's more important that we see actual participation in real life political instances from youth, because the key word here is model United Nations. And I would rather see that we have some real say in the actual United Nations. So I think it's very good in terms of teaching youth how to politically engage. It is a very important tool in the toolkit. But I think we should, most of all, facilitate for more real intervention from youth within a new UN charter.
Yeah, I totally agree with Hannah. I think Model UN obviously is a great tool to activate youth. And the importance of activation of youth is that there's this sort of momentum of meeting new people and making connections and setting ourselves up for maybe this UN body that represents planetary citizens and lets people vote and be represented in the decision-making progress of pressing matters, not only in the climate crisis, but in these perma crisis that we are facing, because I think we have gotten to a point where the climate crisis is affecting every sector, and the intensified climate natural disasters are devastating. So I would agree with the statement of Model UN and youth to participate and be motivated to keep going forward. Either this is by their civil society participation, or through global networks, or through conferences. Whatever it is, it's important to realize that we have the right to participate.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Damiano. And thank you all, our speakers, Bernita, Damiano, and Hannah, for these thoughtful insights. In the case, Damiano and Hannah, you want to add something? Our or your final uh, words.
I can go ahead and just say thank you again for this opportunity. I am very jealous of all of you who are in person in Belém right now and have gotten to see a lot of what is happening in person. Though I think this digital participation and the fact that it is open to young participants is very important. Though obviously we need to remember our bias and our background, that we're very privileged to know about this opportunity and have this opportunity. So with solidarity of all who don't have this possibility, I really just wish to say thank you, and let's remember to improve the real global cooperation against the climate crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Damiano.
Yes, my last remarks would also be along the lines of Hannah. I'm also joining online, and have this opportunity that I'm grateful for. And maybe just end with a thoughtful quote from Margaret Mead, that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So let's stay, unquote, let's stay positive, thoughtful, and keep fighting for a just climate democracy. Thank you all.
Bernita, you want to add something?
I'm just so happy to be around these young people. I feel so hopeful. We had a quote from President Lula that actually says that, yes, he's ready to think about moving in this direction. And there are many, many other leaders who are thinking in this way. And even just to be reminded that there is no people's assembly within the United Nations. We have the General Assembly, we have the Security Council, we have the International Court of Justice. There could even be a youth assembly. There could be an environmental court. There could be, but all of these are possibilities that all of them have talked about. And so I'm just excited that the word is getting out.
Thank you, Bernita. Today we hear why Charter Review matters, how Concord is working to advance it, and how young people are shaping discussions on climate democracy and the future of the global governance. Your voices and participation are essential. And we hope this conversation inspires deeper engage in the youth for Young Charter Review movement. Thank you so much for your time and pay attention. And Bernita.
And I'd also like to go on record of thanking the founder and director, Dr. Sharyar Share of the Center for United Nations Constitutional Research. He has a recent book out. I can share all of that information with you. And thank you, Dr. Share. Thank you again, Nicole. And this is yours. But someone did say intergenerational, so here we are.
Our generation have the power. Thank you so much.